G'day everyone, I hope you're doing well today. And today we're going back into that wonderful world of Johnny Depp. And of course, normally when I talk about an article, I'm talking about something like that despicable, disingenuous piece of so-called reporting from The Hollywood Reporter just a few days ago. But today, I'm actually talking about something a lot more positive. And this comment here, this article, is actually something that's in a positive light for Johnny Depp. But it's not just in a positive light for him. It's actually written how an article should be written. It's fair, it's balanced, and it actually just points out various arguments or flaws in an argument. So I'm going to read through this. It will take a little while, so bear with me. The initial part is a bit of a premise, a bit of a preface to the article itself and the topic of Johnny Depp. So bear with me because I will get to the Johnny Depp component of this, which is a little further down. But it's really important to go through the first part of this article because what it talks about is the importance of belief and non-belief in our society. So this is really relevant to the Johnny Depp case, his situation, and we're going to get through it right now. So it's titled, "It is not disbelief that is dangerous to our society, it is belief," by George Bernard Shaw. So it goes on to say here, belief, a topic I have spoken on many times before. For one, something to be cherished, and at the same time, something that can be utterly dangerous. A thing that seems so innocent and wonderful, as a child desperately believes in Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy, yet also a thing that has caused so much devastation. Belief that an entire race or religion of human population is not worthy of life. Belief that any one person is better than any other based on skin color, gender, social status, a place of upbringing, or any number of fortuitous grounds and conjectures. Belief in something so silly as that the Earth is truly flat when the spherical shape of the Earth was discovered in the 3rd century BC. A belief becomes dangerous when it remains unchallenged or challenge is refused for fear of what may be revealed. Questions must always be asked about ideas. If there are no questions, then there can be no ultimate truth. If Columbus hadn't questioned the idea of only sailing one way to India, how much longer would it have taken to discover the New World? If the Greeks hadn't challenged beliefs that disease is manifested out of superstition and religious punishment, where would the argument for evidence-based medicine begin? Everything begins with a question, a very simple thought that, is this belief or idea valid? No one should ever be shamed for asking. As everyone has heard throughout their time in school, there's no such thing as a stupid question. This should be celebrated. The notion of challenging to further understand or to correct something that has been widely held as true or not true should be encouraged with gusto. And I couldn't agree more with what he says here, because challenging ideas, challenging a certain narrative is exactly what our society should be about, and that is how we get to the truth. That is how we find the absolute truth in the middle of what could be extreme on one side or the other. To shut down a line of questioning because it doesn't work that way, or that's not what I was told, is not a valid argument by any stretch of the imagination. The entire point of the question is to ascertain whether things work the way we believe them to, and if there is truth to what has been told. It is dangerous to silence people with opposing opinions or thoughts to what is accepted as status quo. It is dangerous to not only allow people to wonder and to shame them for doing so. This by no means suggests that every hypothesis will work out, or even that it is feasible to or justifiable. Only that the process of questioning itself should be endorsed. And I couldn't agree with that sentiment more. We should always be asking why? 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 And from what we've seen, most reporters or so-called journalists these days fail to follow that formula, which is a very simple one. Ask questions. The most mendacious belief of all is one that, when challenged with irrefutable evidence to the contrary, still prevails because of fear. Fear that this thing that has been so widely held as an ultimate truth and is so deeply ingrained into one's psyche that to dismantle it would cause some kind of catastrophic collapse of their very existence. Fear is a very powerful motivator. It of course prevents people from causing themselves deliberate harm in a number of literal circumstances. It also prevents people from causing themselves harm in a metaphorical sense, when they refuse to accept that something has changed or that there is an exception to the rule, because what they believe has become so powerful and all-consuming that it can no longer be any other way. Ever. There is another fear. Fear that if people knew you didn't believe something that was so widely regarded as true, you may be ostracized. And that is, case in point, Johnny Depp. Fear so paralyzing that going against the grain may incite anger or distaste towards you that you stay silent and feign acceptance to gain acceptance. Fantastic point there. Fantastic point there. All of this brings us now to a very specific belief that is now being contentiously challenged at some of the highest levels of law and public forum. The belief that men cannot be the victims of DV at the hands of women. It is, of course, true that women can be and are injured by men. But it is also true that men have been and can be injured by women. There is this pervasive thought that women are small and fragile beings and they cannot inflict damage upon others. Whilst women have fought for generations to dispel this very thinking, it suddenly becomes weaponized as a winning attribute when a woman is accused of doing that. The word for this is hypocrisy. Now, I could not agree more with what he says there. Hypocrisy is a fantastic descriptor of what is going on in society at the moment, and particularly with Johnny Depp. Women can do anything men can do, except be that, the V word there. They can never be that. Before we delve into my usual subject matter, I want to highlight a few very prominent cases of female perpetrators of V, and I think one in particular will look extremely familiar. Okay, so he's quoting cases here. So this one here is a female boxer who was arrested for the death of her husband. There was another one here in the UK where his girlfriend poured boiling water over him and attacked him with weapons and things like that. Very, very despicable behavior, and this is of course all women against men. Phil Hartman, obviously a very famous case in Canada there. Sorry, for the Canadian comedian and actor. So he's quoting these cases here where women have absolutely committed these despicable acts towards men. Okay. So now it moves on to the Johnny Depp case, and this is what he says. We now come to American actor Johnny Depp. After telling his then wife, Amber Heard, that he was finished with the marriage and would be seeking a divorce, she undercut him and filed first, producing a list of extortion demands to keep the divorce quiet. On the filing, she cited irreconcilable differences as the reason for separation. When he refused her demands for ownership of luxurious condos, tens of thousands of dollars a month in spousal support, and a number of other extravagant requests, she launched domestic allegations against him. And you know what I mean there, DA or DV allegations against him in the court of public opinion. Ever since then, it has been a heated battle between the two as more and more evidence is brought to light. Depp largely stayed quiet until 2018 when the Sun tabloid printed an article directly accusing him of being a you-know-what. Later that same year, Amber herself would pen an op-ed for the Washington Post referring to her relationship with Depp and propping herself up as a survivor of DV. He then sued both the Sun and her directly for libel and defamation. Now, absolutely important that he did that because he was standing up for himself and standing up for the truth, standing up for justice. And so it is great to see somebody already painting an accurate picture of what has taken place here, because she absolutely was trying to extort him for money, for spousal support, for properties, and all of those things mentioned right there. So very accurate reporting so far. In his claim against Heard, the first revelations that Depp may have been in fact the victim and not she as was claimed. He detailed her aggressive nature and a number of altercations where he alleges she caused him injuries, including the amputation of his fingertip during a rage in Australia. I'm not going to rehash everything that has transpired in early 2020 audio tapes that were released, where Amber continuously admits to acts of violence against him, with her main anger towards him being the fact that he constantly runs away from her fights. Now that is a critical point that no other, well, not any other news outlet or anything that I have seen has reported on. If they have, it's been very, very minimal, but the mainstream always focus on the negative towards Depp, never on anything that he has said. They don't even quote witness statements or anything to that effect. So I appreciate that he's saying here, he's not going to go through all of what was said in the audio tapes, but he says here very clearly that she was most angry with him for when he left and ran away from their fights, which is absolutely critical in all of this because it goes directly against her statement, her witness statement, which says that she was the one who tried to leave. But absolutely false. Okay, it goes on to say, I believe most have heard these long tapes already, but for anyone who has not, the link here is below. Now, coming back to that discussion about belief, the public largely sided with Heard in 2016. They had no reason not to. A woman was claiming violence and she had photos spread across People magazine to prove it. In that moment, she cemented her story. she struck first, and she struck with devastating force that was heard the world over. She knew it would stick with the mixture of his star power and her allegations. At the time, few cared to delve deeper into her claims or to question her accusations. If they did, they were met with rousing cries of, "How dare you?" and "She said so." Women are to be believed at all costs when they allege something against their male partners. Never mind that cracks almost instantly began to appear in the facade. Again, fantastic, a very balanced reporting. He's not using inflammatory language here. He's simply describing exactly what took place. The LAPD, who were called to the home on May 21st, 2016 in relation to the phone throwing incident, stated they saw nothing out of place and nothing wrong with Heard other than she appeared to have been crying and her face was flushed. They also had no idea the call involved Johnny Depp, as the call was placed under the name Heard. The 911 call log shows him as being named Johnny Heard. When they arrived, Heard and her friends refused to give any more details on him, his whereabouts, or his identity. They found nothing wrong, and Heard alleged a verbal disagreement, so they left their business card with her and departed. Not widely reported is that some hours later, another set of police officers arrived and also saw nothing. 2 separate calls, 4 different officers, and nothing amiss. Again, fantastic to see that the actual events are being reported here. And this is facts. This is absolute facts. You can go and read the transcripts from the testimony of Officer Melissa Sands and Tyler Hayden. I think it was Tyler Hayden. But anyway, Tyler Haddon, that's right. So you can go and read those transcripts if you wish. But what he is quoting here is exactly correct and accurate. And it is based on evidence and testimony. So again, very accurate reporting here. And I have absolute respect for this guy for what he is writing, because he's basing it on those facts, on that evidence, unlike the Hollywood Reporter, who simply decided to claim source or the head of this production company without actually naming anybody. Okay, it goes on to say, the building personnel gave off-the-cuff statement to the press that they had seen nothing wrong with Heard in the days after this alleged incident. The public would later learn that Heard tried to coerce them into retracting this and making a new statement to a friend of hers at People magazine, that they had indeed seen her injured. They refused and referred her to their company legal team. Okay, so he's talking about and referring to Trinity Esparza there, and also Brandon Patterson, who was the manager of the East Columbia building. So very, very interesting. And there was also Alejandro Romero, who backed up the statements about no injuries on Miss Heard's face. So with all of this, again, he is referring to evidence. He's referring to witness statements, not just made up stories, not just what he feels like writing. He is referring to actual evidence and witness statements. So again, I think this is very refreshing to see. Goes on to say, these revelations made some people start to reconsider what they had heard about her claims, but her claims hit with such force that many were fearful to question her. Again, the belief system. She had made serious and very public claims against someone. The question that began to follow was, why would she lie? When a specific example is challenged in a way that goes against a core belief, it is not unusual for people to try and dismiss the contradictory evidence and attempt to justify the event in a way that fits back into their worldview. The officers were protecting him, they said. See above about not knowing his identity. Exactly. They didn't know who he was when they turned up. They didn't know who Amber Heard was either. They didn't know she was an actress. Well, let's face it, she's not exactly well known, or she wasn't then. And so it says here, she must have been wearing makeup and hid her injury from the building staff. More than a few of them testified to seeing her for days, with clearly no makeup on and nothing wrong. It usually takes something so unbelievably discrediting, patently undeniable, and of equal or more catastrophic force to continue to believe the original narrative would then make someone look uninformed and uneducated. In a word, nuclear. Johnny Depp would get his nuclear moment with the audio tapes. The amount of violence that Heard admits to in the above-linked tapes is appalling. Amongst a number of things is punching him in the face, throwing things at him, slamming a door into his head, and admitting to starting physical fights. She does not at any point insinuate self-defense or accuse him of assaulting her other than to say, "You hit back," to which he responds that he pushed her off or away from him, which she doesn't dispute, and goes into a tirade about why she isn't going to discuss the details of that fight, and a line to which he admits throwing a can back at her in Australia during the incident in which his fingertip was severed. Add to this the fact he has produced a number of eyewitnesses to her attacks on him, and her stories completely fall apart. Now, this sentence is a fantastic summary of everything that's going on here, because Yes, the audio is appalling. We can hear her say that she starts the physical fights. She never denies anything that he accuses her of in terms of physical assault, physical abuse, nothing. She never categorically denies it. Instead, she tries to excuse it and make excuses for it, and most of the time blaming Johnny Depp himself for her actions. So very, very critical paragraph here, and I think it summarizes everything extremely well. Goes on to say, these tapes and their contents flew around the world with the same, if not more, furor than her original claims. The tides were turned, and they would be turned for good. To have full admittance and undeniable proof in the form of a recording that spans hours led to a world-shifting event that suddenly made people understand why she had lied and cemented him as a victim of domestic violence. She had lied because she wanted to undercut him, to seal her status first so she could remain unchallenged and stop him from speaking about anything that had happened to him. She was scared that when he left her and the marriage, he would talk, and she had to be the first one to talk to effectively silence him. She never anticipated that he would indeed fight back under the rule of law. She saw him as weak and assumed that he would just stay silent and accept her further abuse through the media. Luckily, he found his strength and stood up to her. Absolutely, and that's what we're all about here. You know, we are standing up for Johnny Depp. Not all of us are Depp heads. Not all of us have been fans of Johnny Depp his entire career. A lot of people, just like me, are following this case and supporting him purely on the fact that justice needs to be served and the truth needs to be told. Johnny Depp is innocent and he should be completely vindicated of all of these allegations and absolutely should be supported as a victim. Fast forward to July 2020, and the case against the Sun went to trial in London. Outside the court, Depp was greeted daily by throngs of fans and admirers, offering support in the wake of so much of his personal life being laid bare to the world. For most who followed the trial closely, it appeared inherently obvious that Heard was lying about everything, her claims so exaggerated and full of ridiculous details and mistakes that she was confronted with. While Depp openly admitted to his struggles with substance abuse, yet maintained his innocence against the abuse allegations and provided all evidence to the contrary. He supplied medical and photographic documentation for his own injuries. He supplied the police depositions and they testified in person. He supplied witnesses to her attacks on him. He supplied security camera footage of Heard without injury in the days after she alleges assault. He supplied everything that appeared necessary to completely discredit her, and she appeared to have been the creator of her own demise. She supplied false evidence and claimed horrific injuries that were countered with photographs of her doing public appearances the very next day, or not aligning at all with the remarkable levels of violence she claims to have endured. She supplied no medical or hospital records to supplement her claims of broken bones. She supplied no evidence to support her claims of absolutely gruesome episodes of violence that, if true, would have left her with lengthy hospital stays and at near death on more than one occasion. One does not need to be an expert in medicine to know that her allegations are in no way based in reality and cannot be true when compared with her photographic submissions and behavior in the days these alleged assaults occurred. Unfortunately, disaster struck when the ruling in this case finally arrived. After months of anticipation, what would surely be a resounding victory for Depp, he lost. Justice Andrew Nichols sided with the Sun and declared Heard's allegations to be substantially true. This sent shockwaves around the world as most could not believe it. Survivors of abuse scoffed as they recounted their own court cases or court losses in the face of all evidence. Others chastised the judge for simply taking the woman's side. The ruling was condemned by most of the public, while the media ran with the victory for themselves and began to write unabashedly that Johnny Depp is a you-know-what. It had been decreed by a judge after all, so who now would challenge that result? The ruling in itself is deeply flawed on a number of levels, in my personal opinion. That opinion is shared by many members of the public, as well as a great deal of professionals in the field of law, who have examined it and the case as a whole. There are a ton of fallacies and incorrect assumptions throughout. Never mind the complete disregard of evidence against Heard and excusing of the lies she was caught in at every turn. The most dangerous narrative it raised is that Depp is a court-ruled wife you-know-what. This is not the truth. He has never been criminally charged or convicted in this case, has no convictions for violence anywhere in the world, and has simply lost a libel claim against a disgusting English tabloid. Unfortunately, it would cause a massive fallout in any event, leading him to swiftly losing his starring role in Fantastic Beasts franchise as Gellert Grindelwald, an appalling move from Warner Brothers Studios that incited a weeks-long public backlash against the studio for their decision. And you can rest assured that that backlash still continues to this day. The Aquaman 2 petition is now almost up to 2 million signatures, so it does continue. There are a number of theories as to how or why the judge came to the decision he did. I'm not going to entertain a lot of them other than to say that his belief, and possibly the beliefs of some of his family members, may have had some influence on it. To very publicly decree that a woman has lied about domestic violence is a heavy hammer to drop, although I personally believe that the law is the law, no matter the circumstances, and should be applied equally, no matter the circumstances. It is possible that he felt it would be too disastrous to condemn a female in this way. He may have even taken the why would she lie approach. He certainly may have been influenced by some of his family, friend, or professional circles. He may have decided that Johnny could withstand the judgment against him because he's a man after all. Men can just take it and never complain or feel emotional about anything. He may have also just simply believed her. I find the latter to be hard to stomach after examining all of the evidence and testimony, but that's the thing about beliefs. They will sometimes make you say and do things that seem completely absurd to others but are completely valid and unproblematic to you. In the wake of everything, the public support for Johnny Depp has grown to fever pitch. As I said earlier, the audios prove nuclear to Heard and her credibility. She has now undertaken a PR stance to completely undermine the public support and make various accusations against those who speak out against her. She has filed a $100 million counterclaim against Depp, alleging that he and his lawyer are running an internet smear campaign against her with the use of sophisticated Russian bots. Her previous lawyer, Roberta Kaplan, who dropped her as a client after the audio tapes were released, has compared those who support Depp to the KKK, the N-word, and Trump supporters. It's worth mentioning that she was reprimanded by the judge in Virginia in the defamation suit, which is yet to be heard, for giving misleading statements to the media surrounding various court decisions. A profile was written on Depp in the Hollywood Reporter that reeks of character assassination and never mentions Heard or the evidence against her. And I have mentioned the comparison between what is being written here and what I'm reading to you guys right now versus that Hollywood Reporter hit piece, because it's entirely different. If you just look at the language alone, and the language that this person is using to write this article is very, very professional language. But you look at the Hollywood Reporter hit piece and it's all extremely emotional, inflammatory, and it's not based on any evidence whatsoever. What all of this name-calling and peacocking really means is that they are scared. The media knows they have lost the public on this matter and that the entire belief structure is being crushed and dismantled. Kaplan has a vested interest even after having left Heard and her case because she is a founding member of the #TimesUp Legal Defense Fund, an organization whose purpose is supposed to be to help victims of SH and the like. The problem that ensued for her recently is that the organization has been found to be funneling more funds to their executives and their lush board meetings than actually helping anyone. Yelling about poor defenseless women and big bad men is big business, and Depp threatens the very existence of that business if he gets a fair shake. Their and Heard's answer to that is to try and silence everyone by slapping them with labels. They are bots. They're incapable of rational discourse. They have no understanding of the English language. I wish I were joking, but these are actual literal quotes from Kaplan herself. I think that's rather abusive in and of itself. If you have to try and silence a massive number of people and label them as essentially heretics, then what does that really say about you? In my opinion, it says that you are paralyzed with fear that your beliefs are being challenged and you now stop at nothing to keep those conversations from happening or seeming legitimate. The attempt to intimidate or oppress the public into silence is a wild gamble. There is no conceivable payoff for that maneuver, as the pushback will only grow louder and more severe no matter the subject. Telling people that they must believe something because someone said so went out of fashion in the Middle Ages and won't be reappearing anytime soon. We live in the age of information, with knowledge and resources available at the swipe or click of a finger, and this is terrifying to people like Amber Heard and Roberta Kaplan because they know that people are aware of where to find the truth and they are actively seeking it out. Again, a fantastic point there, absolutely fantastic. I don't know what the future holds for Johnny Depp or his case in Virginia. I can only hope that with the advantage of a jury trial versus one sole man in the UK, that people will listen to what the evidence, witnesses, and Heard herself say. I hope they take it upon themselves to challenge whatever belief they may have in a case such as this, to make sure that what the truth is what ultimately prevails. Not a single person or a preference or what they believe should be true, but what actually is true. And I could not agree with him more. This has been a fantastic article, and I realize that this video is quite long, but I think everything that this person has said here is absolutely correct, and he has been fair and based it on evidence. That's what's so important. Not like the Hollywood Reporter hit piece that was put out the other day, and 99% of the other mainstream media articles that we see. So, what is your opinion on this, guys? Do you think that this article was absolutely fair and balanced and gave all of the facts? Or do you think this is another sensationalist type article like the Hollywood Reporter? In my opinion, this is one of the best and most well-written articles I've seen covering this case so far, and I hope you agree with me. Until next time, justice for Johnny Depp, and I hope you have an awesome day.